Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to another edition of Dojo Live. I am Tulio Sergusa, broadcasting from Southern California. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. I'm joined today by Conrad de Cruz, who's joining me from Toronto, Canada, who's co-hosting today, covering for Ram Ganesan. Hi, good morning.
Morning, Tulio.
Actually, it's afternoon there in Toronto. Good
It
afternoon.
is. It's tipped over.
And we have Sam Aki, who's with Avangrid, who's the manager of renewable training and innovation, who's joining us from Portland. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Good morning. That's Sasha in the background.
All right, excellent. Hi, Sasha. Very good. Maybe we'll hear Sasha purring. Is it I can't tell because
No, it's a German Shepherd.
Oh, that wouldn't purr. Nice. I grew up with German Shepherds. Love them. So, Sam, let's get to know you a little bit. We're talking about extended reality today. It's an interesting conversation. But before we go into the topic and dig into it, let's get to know you a little bit. Sam, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thank you. So my name's Sam Aki. I am the manager of renewable energy and innovation training at Avangrid. I've been in this job for about 5 years. Self-proclaimed nerd. Luckily, I dig two things: education and technology. So those two things now, actually, that gap, especially with our generation kind of coming into play. I have teenagers that definitely have focused me on that world, is that that gap is closing very quickly, and that training now is not the same as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even just 2 years ago. That world is changing just as fast as technology is. And I work for Avangrid. So Avangrid's a large utility that we own several large utilities on the East Coast. And we also have a renewable sector that we have third largest in the country. We're in 26 different states. We service close to 2 million customers, and give them the ability to turn their lights on. So yeah, and utilities kind of have always been sort of slow when it comes to education. So that's why it's just been a huge thing with this innovation project we're doing, to kind of catch all of that up. So yeah, totally excited to be here and talk about this kind of stuff. I feel like the more that we can sort of educate people and other potential users of this technology, it's better for all of us, because the more that we use it, the more that's invested, and it's that free hand, in the technology world, is the more people that want it and will invest in it, the better that technology will get. And that's exactly what's happened with things like extended reality. So
Nice. So let's go right into the topic today. Thanks for the introduction and for a little bit about Avangrid as well. The topic you chose today was leveraging AR/VR to accelerate field worker qualifications and capabilities. And what we're really talking about today is how today's learners seek autonomy and accelerated results, how extended reality leverages auditory and visual channels in a way traditional methods can't replicate. That's a mouthful, I know. But essentially, you're using extended reality as a way to educate and to qualify field workers, as I understand it. Please tell us a bit more about what made you choose this topic and why this is relevant in terms of what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the first word that comes to mind is the autonomy part. So that is a characteristic that we have seen over and over, and we're becoming more aware of in the training industry, is that people really kind of want to be in charge of their own way of learning something. And we've definitely seen that offers the quickest way and the best way for them to retain it. So I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, my trunk broke the other day, and was I going to go and like read this giant book on fundamentals of trunks and how they work and this, or do I just go to YouTube, search broken trunk on a Toyota Corolla, and in 2 seconds I was able to pull up something that I watched a video of somebody doing it, and I did it. So that's kind of the autonomy I'm talking about, is the choice of how, they will learn the best, whether that's, reading, video, or ideally putting them like in something immersive where they get to actually practice doing it.
So the
Sam, do
days
you
of
have
Chilton books is over, huh?
What's that?
Remember the big Chilton auto books?
Oh, I remember those. Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely moving away from that.
safely so? Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry,
But
Chilton. Go ahead,
yeah,
Conrad.
but Sam, do you have any data on what's really some of the areas for immersive? Because like you said, if I have a flat tire, I'm not gonna look up my manual of how do I really fix the flat. I'm just gonna go to YouTube and I'm gonna fix it, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of topics do you think would be best suited in your experience for doing this innovations pilot for AvantGrid? What kind of topics do you think would be more suited for immersive?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that is the $1 million question of what do you do? And I think a lot of companies made this mistake when they invested in VR early, and they're like, yeah, we want to show somebody how to, whatever, fix a door. Okay, so they make this big, great VR module how to fix a door, but then you realize, you're like, well, I could have probably showed you how to do that in person, and it would have taken the same amount of time, and I wouldn't have had to invest this much money.
Exactly.
So what you have to do is pick something that you cannot replicate easily. So in other words, like in our industry, it's very easy. So, we have, our linemen and our technicians work in dangerous conditions every day.
Mhm.
So we can't just say, all right, guys, it's time to practice high voltage switching. It's dangerous. You just don't do that. And plus, it's not good to turn people's power on and off, right? People
Yeah,
don't like that.
and no, nobody likes that.
So,
Not here when it's -2 degrees Fahrenheit.
right,
No.
exactly. So but the beautiful thing about VR is that you make that world. So you can make it like you go in and you can practice actually like switching. You can practice putting on high voltage switching gear and personal protective equipment and all of that, and replicate that process. Nothing has ever existed like that before. So, and we're talking about that auditory and visual learning, which is at
Mhm,
the top of the knowledge transfer pyramid. So you're
mhm,
talking 90% of experience learning is retained,
mhm.
down to 10% if you put them in a classroom.
True.
Wow.
So it's
It's like a
big gap.
simulation inside the simulation, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. But like I said, you can't put them in VR for just anything. You really have to pick specific things that, that make sense. Like for us, it's something like, safety, a dangerous situation, or just something that's, we're unable to have them practice easily.
Got it. So would you say, Sam, for the listeners that are tuning in today, manufacturing, aviation, and medical device healthcare have been one of the forefront runners to really implement this immersive learning, right? But what about companies that do not have, not in that category? Let's say finance, right? Finance, for example. Would you say that there are some use cases in those areas for finance that folks can probably look into?
That's a tough one. I've never thought about finance.
Because everybody wants to jump into the bandwagon, right? You and I
Sure.
know that. Everybody wants to do something in either
In
VR,
VR.
AR, or MR, right? That these are the
Yeah.
three vehicles that everybody wants to kind of jump onto. But should everybody jump onto it? And what kind of use cases, if any, do you see for folks like in finance or
Uh,
insurance?
so, all
I mean,
right. So,
I could see
oh, go ahead.
potentially, teaching someone how to trade, right? For a lot of these applications that are encouraging home trading or investment. I could see potentially someone using that as a platform to teach what to look for. It's an immersive way instead of just reading about it. But but I don't know if that's an industry where this can really take off. And maybe we haven't thought about the applications, but I'm curious
Yeah.
to learn about in the education field, how's like COVID, for example, impacted the investments in this kind of technology? And is there a future of having virtual classrooms using these kinds of technologies that could potentially eliminate the need to have even brick and mortar facilities? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I definitely think that COVID did not slow us down. That's for sure. Our when it came to kind of virtual, um, you know, uh, simulations and things like that, that it definitely sped up that um, need and want to have that option. And we weren't particularly ready. Unfortunately, the AR VR, it's the development's kind of slow because it's a process. The developers make the models, then we look at it, make sure everything kind of is tied together. I feel like though in the future we would be better prepared for that. um, yeah, so I feel like it's definitely something though that, like Conrad, I'm sure can say. I mean, now they're talking about modules that a bunch of technicians could get in the same module and like
Yeah.
work on the same thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like I can't wait to try something like that. And I
Wow.
know it's
True.
out there. I've seen it.
True.
I've seen like videos of it and stuff.
Yeah, and to your point, a lot of the industry that you're in, Sam, which is the utilities industry, the energy utilities industry, they're slow adopters to technology. And Avangrid, I've been following you guys, and I know that you've taken that leap of faith last year and done that innovations pilot that you're leading, Sam. How
Mhm.
has it been convincing some of your management team who really, may or may not have supported you? Because I know that utilities by itself, they're not very fast, and you just mentioned that they're not fast adopters to technology.
Nope. Nope. Um, it's hard sometimes. uh, I think that just VR. I feel people still think that the jury is out on VR, and I mean, technically, I think it is, right? It's
Yeah.
not. It's not solid proven. You know what I mean? I've seen it work. I've only because I'm in it almost every day, so it's easier for me to make the connection. Trying to explain that to stakeholders when they see the price tag of how
Yes.
much it is to invest in.
Shocker. Yes.
Shocker, it is. But hey, I mean, it is. You're talking, even just what 4 or 5 years ago when it sort of just came on the scene. Valve
Yeah.
made their
Yeah.
headset. The
Yeah.
thing was
Yep.
like $1,400 for
Yeah.
just the equipment. Now at least you can get, the self-contained headsets for $400.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
the technology's better.
Yeah.
So
But
that's been a
but
big
is
thing.
that the biggest expense, the hardware, or is it actually designing the simulation, for example,
It's the
right?
design. I'm
Great
sure
question,
Conrad will
Julio.
tell you
Right?
that.
Great
Yeah,
And
question. That's
and
a
and
great question.
and
it is.
also, is it also a challenge because unlike most software where you have a UX or UI or design team doing their work and then you have the developers coding it, is it safe to assume that with VR, it's slightly different? You have to really work closely hand in hand, both design and development, to materialize these ideas. Is there a gap still in terms of how most organizations work in that fashion, that sort of separated fashion of developing these kinds of things that needs to change in order to enhance our ability to embrace VR? What are your thoughts on that based on your own experience at Avangrid?
I think it's all about strategy. I think that, my strategy was to, I mean, just kind of get the investment first and make the investment in the digital assets. So when we built the assets, we made sure that they would be leveraged over and over. You know what I mean? Like when we built a cabinet, we knew that that cabinet could be used over and over and over again. We just built a substation model. So, but we built it so that it could be used by both our utility and our renewables business. So, you don't want to make things that are one-offs. That's
Mhm.
where you're definitely going to get axed. Your budget's going to get cut because, it just doesn't make any sense. You've got to make things that you're going to use over and over so that you're not focusing on build a whole new model every single time you want to change it. You just want to build interactions because it's faster. You're still be able to give the learner a little bit of some change it up for them, some choices, and that's really the strategy that we're following.
Perfect. That's great. So it's across your networks and across your
Mhm.
renewables for both of the major lines of businesses that Avangrid has. But that's great. But that's great. And you hit the nail on the head, Sam. It has to be modular in terms of the interactions that you can put across for the various skills that you're looking to get immersed in this kind of technology, and that's fantastic. But one question, and you, don't blame me for this, but you knew this was coming. What do you see more immersive when it comes to AR or VR or MR? What in your opinion is the more immersive part of it?
I love AR. I really, really like AR. I don't like the price tag of the headsets. So the best AR out there right now, I feel like, is that Microsoft HoloLens 2,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There we go. There she is.
right?
Beautiful.
$3,500.
Looks like ski goggles. Kind of cool design.
Oh, it's super cool. Now, what you can do with this thing is, and the cool part about the augmented, so when you got augmented, I'm out of focus here. Okay. When you have augmented, you're kind of in both. So you're kind of in it's like holograms basically. So
Yeah.
you're able to overlay things like on equipment or things like that. And the really nice part about that is that you can call people within the headset. So if I'm a technician and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen this before, I really need some help. Boom, you hit the headset and you call back to your office and you get one of the senior techs and he can see what you're seeing. And he can even load things into your headset and overlay like a diagram or something like that. So when it comes to something like that, augmented reality stands out by itself. You know what I mean?
And
And
you've actually addressed one of the disadvantages that the industry report last year put out in terms of two areas. One is flexibility and state of mind.
mhm,
You just addressed that to say if the learner or the user is caught in a mix, they could just ask for help,
yeah,
which some of the other personas or other mediums do not do. So that's great, Sam. So
yeah.
that's why you choose AR.
For specific things again, and that's that flexibility. You know what I mean? So like, okay, so we'll use the fixing the trunk thing. So if I was like, all right, I need to go fix my trunk, I watched the video, so I'm going to go do it now. I have two choices. I either go in virtual reality, do all that, and go through this simulation, or I quickly put on my headset and call Conrad and say, hey, Conrad, this is what I'm looking at, man. What do I do? I know you've done this before. So in that situation, I would use AR. Now I got to go do a high voltage switching event, and you're not going to be able to help me. You know what I mean? Like I'm on my own when I actually have to do that. That's when I would want to go through a simulation first because there's risk. I would want to go first where I'm not going to get hurt. There's no chance of me getting hurt or damaging equipment. Then I go and try and do it. So those are the two scenarios.
I
So you
gotta
just
admit, guys, I had like this ding, 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 ding noise going off in my head just as you were talking, because we live in the do-it-yourself era, right? And self-service is the best service. So what I'm seeing is there a possibility that some companies could potentially create an environment where you can get access to support for all kinds of things. You want to change the oil in your car. You want to fix a socket in your house. So you want to put up, something on the wall. You want to put up a TV, and literally someone's in there walking you through what to do next,
Mhm.
instead of actually calling someone to come to the house to do the service. You do it yourself, and it's a shared environment, shared resource environment or shared services environment, right? Which was something big in the 80s and 90s internally to a lot of companies. They learned how to share capacity without having to build multiple kingdoms within an organization. So is there a potential that we're at the early stages of a future where I can do stuff myself? I just call an expert on my AR device and just have them walk me through whatever I need to help with. Is that where it's going?
I definitely think, I mean, you hit it on the head. If you look at all the research, that's why in training it's called just in time, because I need this information just in time when I need it. I don't want to have to do a bunch of research. I don't want to have to do, you know what I mean? Give me the YouTube, you know what I mean? Give me that's that generation. That's the workforce transition that's coming in. They're all born in the internet age. I wasn't, you guys may have not been. So I know what it's like to have to go look at an encyclopedia. It's a long time ago, but I remember.
We all
Now
do.
they don't know that.
Yeah.
When they were 4, they were using mom's cell phone to play a game or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, yes, I think that from here forward, as this technology grows and the capabilities grow, you're going to see more investment like Oculus has done and like Microsoft has done. And that headset, this HoloLens headset, integrates with Teams, with Outlook, and that's the great thing about Microsoft, man, is when they implement something, it works with all their stuff. You know what I mean? So I could make a Teams call on my headset and do a presentation of what I'm looking at to a bunch of technicians, something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of potential.
So in to call it just in time, which is a very commonly used term in the industry. So I would say AR is more JIT, and you have VR, which is more safe haven to practice before you can't get it wrong anymore, right? Would you
Correct.
say that, Sam?
I would say that. Yep. And I
Okay.
would say that VR has more potential for learner feedback because of the tracking. So for instance, we're implementing something with the eye tracking so that if a person, say you got this giant cabinet with a bunch of just wires, it's spaghetti,
Mm-hmm.
and we put them through a simulation. Afterward, we could say, hey, just to let you know, man, you were looking in the wrong part of the cabinet 90% of the time. It was over here and you were looking up here most of the time.
Correct.
So that's a really big
Huge
place where we know that we can intervene.
Yeah.
It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
with someone's learning information,
Yeah.
instead of reactive. When by the time we realize there's a training issue, they've hurt themselves or somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sam, in terms of the implementation now that you guys are going to be focusing on for the augmented reality, virtual reality for Avangrid, what are some of the if I'm an engineer and I want to join you guys, what can I look forward to coming on board and experiencing, which maybe your competitor does not offer me?
Sure. So what I would say is, what we're going to be focusing on is detail. The more detailed I think these simulations are, and the more realistic they are, I feel like the more engagement we'll get. So we don't want to make it it's some kind of you go into this thing and you're like, wait a minute, this is all wrong. You know what I mean? This isn't wires don't look like that. The switch doesn't work like this. So for us, we want to make that experience real. So we
Realistic.
want
Yep.
the things to look real. We want, the equipment to be familiar. So we keep adding that kind of detail. Like the one that we just finished, we actually have a one-line diagram. So a big thing for us teaching technicians and engineers is how to read schematics. That's difficult. At least it was, it was something difficult for me. Taking something two-dimensional and making it three-dimensional in your mind. VR does that and makes that connection for you instantly. Whereas before you had to, and it's like math. Some people it's really easy. It's like Beethoven and music. But some people find it very difficult to do that. So VR does that for you because it says, here's 2-dimensional, here's 3-dimensional right in front of you. Boom, you make that connection.
Interesting. Sam, I want to go back to something you said earlier about you guys have created, for example, a cabinet that can be replicated, reused. So you have standardized certain things. I kept thinking about how some of the auto manufacturers who have multiple brands have done similar things in order to reduce cost and they could get it very efficient and also improve the speed of production. I'm wondering, just the same way open source contributed to increasing the speed on how things got developed on the software side, right? By sharing, by contributing, you don't have to build everything from scratch, right? So are people contributing similarly in this environment to open source environment where you can reuse some of these assets so that the industry itself can speed up? Or what are your thoughts on that? What's happening there?
Well, so there are some there's places you can go online like Turbo Squid and some different places that offer, like you said, like just models that are already built. A lot of that's hard to use for VR and AR because the detail is like so good. They make some of this stuff it's like making something from CAD drawings. So if you make something from CAD drawings in VR, or I mean in a 3D model, normally it's to duplicate it, in like a 3D printer. For VR and AR, you're just looking for the person to look at it. So I guess the question, or the answer to your question is, there's nothing right now that people are sharing that I know of, just because it's so expensive. I don't think people are willing to share it yet. I hope so. I hope someday they will.
I mean, that's what happened with software too, right? It was very expensive, but I'm curious because if it follows the same evolution, then you'll probably see the cost of production come down, right?
We would be willing to have that conversation. And I've always been one to say, look, I mean, I understand things are proprietary and we're not looking to help our competition, but there are certain things I think that we could all benefit from.
Right.
And I think, you know what I mean? And I think that something like you just mentioned, maybe we all agree on, hey, look, let's just make something that we all agree on. This is a transformer that we know looks good. It's an industry standard. We all agree on it. Let's all get together and pay for one. Everybody benefits.
Right.
Is it going to hurt? Is it going to really hurt like our bottom line? Probably not.
Right. I mean, that's the stuff that's not necessarily IP that are repeatable.
Yeah.
Certainly. Well, hopefully they'll go in that direction, right? Conrad, you got some. We're coming up on wrap up. I know you got some additional good questions to ask.
Yeah, I could keep us here till the cows come home, but one last one. What's the benchmark, Sam? What's the benchmark that you guys are setting yourself up for in this year?
So yeah, benchmark, that's tough. Like there is none right now, really. But so the benchmark I would like to create is, like I said, the strategy. Build the models as a whole, and in the mind that don't focus on the tasks so much. I feel like when you focus on the task, it really it targets a very small group of people. When you focus on the environment, I feel like you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. So if you focus on a substation rather than saying, I want to show somebody how to do an oil sample, you are going to get a lot more for a lot more of your learners, whether they're new or experienced.
Got it. That's good.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to have you, Sam. There's so much to discuss on the evolution of extended reality. It's obviously an infancy stage industry that's been around for some time, but clearly there's huge potential and opportunity. Let's hope those costs of hardwares come down so that more people can play in it and innovate. I'd love to be able to have a service where I can call in for help for anything and do it myself, because I'm pretty handy, but I don't always know how to do everything. So hopefully someone listening is like, hey, that's a good business opportunity. Let's Uberize our augmented reality.
I might just have to jump on that real quick.
Just from the way you heard it first. Anyway, it's been great to have you with us, Sam. We'll have to stay in touch and see how things progress and move along with you and the company. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for joining us today. Come back at noon Pacific. We're going to have another Dojo Live at noon Pacific today. and we have one more tomorrow at noon Pacific on Thursday. That's a total of 4 shows this week. And of course, Monday, if you've missed any of them, Monday at noon, we will have the recap show where we recap all 4 shows in 10 minutes. Imagine that. So thanks for joining us. And until later today, stay safe.